hope you are having a good weekend and hope you were able to watch Wakanda Forever. If not, hope you get to see it soon. I had the chance to watch it last night at the time of making, or yesterday at the time of making this video. So I want to share some thoughts. Sometimes I do spoilers for reviews and sometimes I don't, depending on the film. But for this one, I do think, like for some reviews, I think it's necessary for certain reasons. And for this movie, I do think it will be necessary to get into spoilers, but I will give a spoiler warning before I get into spoiler territory. So I will give a warning before I get into spoiler things. That way, in case you haven't seen it and you don't want spoilers, you don't have to watch that part of the video. First, I'll give some general overall thoughts. Overall, I think Ryan Coogler has really stood out amongst some of the other Marvel directors, not to like bash other Marvel directors. Of course the Russo brothers, but are standouts as well. But and I can't remember the name of the director who made Shang-Chi, but I do put them kind of in the same category, Shang-Chi and Black Panther. They are more, to me, in my opinion, some of the standout movies in at least, phase 4 or whatever phase, the more recent phase of Marvel introducing these new characters. And so, of course, the first Black Panther movie was one of my favorite Marvel movies at that time, to date, at that time. And, when sequels, like when the first movie is really good, sequels have, there's a lot of pressure to live up to the same standard or, be just as good as the first one or almost as good as the first one. And I think with this one, it was going to be difficult no matter what, because just of the fact that Chadwick Boseman died. So I think it was an impossible decision to make whether to recast him or not. And no matter, I say it was an impossible decision is because either way, there's going to be people or fans on either side. There's going to be people on the side who say they should have recast him so we could have T'Challa as the Black Panther. And there's going to be people that say no, it should not recast him. That should be Chadwick's legacy of, just him playing Black Panther in live action. So I think either way, it was a very sensitive subject, sensitive topic, and an impossible decision to make because you're not going to be able to please all the fans no matter what decision you make. So that added an extra level of difficulty to this movie because they had to include that in the story. And it's not really a spoiler that, obviously T'Challa dies in this movie because he died in real life. But I think it's bittersweet because it's exciting to get a Black Panther sequel, and then it's, sad knowing that it's not going to be him. So when you're going to a movie knowing that you're looking forward to it, but at the same time, you're like, dang, I wish he could be playing T'Challa, So I think this movie overall, compared to the first one, the tone was very different, which is understandable. There's going to be things that are different, not just because it's a sequel, but because of the fact that it's not T'Challa and it's not Chadwick Boseman. So it was much more emotionally much more tied to the emotional aspect of the movie, which is the first one had a lot of emotional aspects of it too, because of the origin of Killmonger and then finding out truths about his dad that he didn't know his whole life. So there were a lot of, and Killmonger's motivations, all of that stuff was really emotional as well and deep, and which made him a great villain. And one of the reasons why it stood out amongst the MCU movies, because it dove deeper into real life things and darker subjects. And, Michael B. Jordan did a really good job of portraying that in his characterization of Killmonger. So this one was obviously emotional for different reasons because now there has to be a new Black Panther, but they don't have the herb anymore that gives the Black Panther the Black Panther's powers because Killmonger destroyed it all. And so that's part of the story as well that comes into play because since the Black Panther, well, in the movie, since T'Challa died, they haven't had a Black Panther because they don't have the herb to have a new Black Panther. So overall, it was a much more like slower burn of a movie. Of course, the action scenes and the fight scenes were still really great, like the first movie, and the Wakandan female warriors are awesome badasses. They remind me a lot of the Amazons. I kind of like get the same feelings when I see them fight, and their uh, strength and their confidence. Like I feel the same way when I see the Amazons, and so all of that was still great, but it was, like I said, a much more of a slower burn. I do think that it didn't, like, the length was not really necessary. Um, there was probably some plot points that could have been um, like that weren't really necessary to the story. Um, they didn't really do anything significant for the plot. And so there were some things that I think in that aspect could have been a little like shaved down or not really included at all. Since we get to see Queen Ramonda as as a leader in this movie, the leader of Wakanda, the queen of Wakanda, since her husband and her son both died, now she's in charge. So Angela Bassett, first of all, is a queen anyway. So it was great casting to make her Queen Ramonda in the first place. And I still loved her in the first movie. But in this movie, we really get to see her take on that role. And she is a force of nature and she's amazing. And as a mother as well. So it was really cool to see her um, take, take on that position um, in the second movie. Now, Shuri in this movie, her role obviously became very important because of the fact that T'Challa died. And, you know, she, her, Latita Wright, like, hats off to her because she really had to pull this out of her. Like, I mean, she, I'm sure filming the scenes were probably, a lot of times she cries a lot in the movie, and understandably so because of what's going on. And it's very emotional and heavy, and I'm sure a lot of that she probably didn't have to try very hard because of Chadwick actually dying in real life. I'm sure it, was really difficult emotionally to tackle that because they also had to include that in the movie. And so I really give her a lot of props for digging deep and like being convincing as, you know, um, being in this position of losing her brother and feeling guilty that she wasn't able to save him because of the technology that they have and what they should be able to. Usually they can prevent a lot of people from dying with their technology and vibranium, but since they don't have the herb anymore, she's trying to recreate it. And she really carries a lot of that guilt with her. There's a real struggle for her character in this movie, and I think she did a really great job of stepping into that. Performances in this movie were really great and top notch, and so I'll go ahead and get into Tina Cuerta as Namor. Okay, so in my trailer reaction for the movie, I felt like he was going to be a standout, not just in the film, but amongst villains in the MCU. To me, Killmonger was the best villain so far in the MCU, and I do think that Mandarin was a pretty good villain too in Shang-Chi. I thought like his character was great. So I had said that Brian Coogler is about to have two of the best MCU villains under his belt, and I still believe that after seeing the movie. I feel the same way. Like, he was a great character, a great villain, and Tena Cuerta did a really, it was impressive. His performance was very impressive, and I thought he was definitely convincing. And I really like his backstory and the way they portrayed it in the movie and gave us. You understand him as a character. You understand his origin. The cultural aspect was super interesting and really cool to see on screen. Um, that's one of the best things about Black Panther as well, right? The whole cultural aspect of it. They really expanded on it and added this whole new world and cultural element. It was very, very interesting, and like, they hearing them speak their language and these cool things that their people can do with their voice cause this like sonic like hypnosis type of thing. And they are super strong. Like, he's not the only one just because he's a mutant. um he is different from the rest of them, but main group of guards for the Wakandan throne, they kind of have the same thing. And Talokan, they are like, it was a really good matchup for them, for the Wakandan guard, and for them to be fighting. Like, it was a great matchup. They had some really great fight scenes, and it was really interesting to learn about their whole story. And as a villain, it was interesting because he was definitely very menacing, and some of his interactions with Queen Ramonda were like very threatening and straightforward, and he was not afraid to be that way towards her. And then there's a part when he's interacting with Cherie and giving her his backstory. And I didn't want in that time, I didn't want him to be a villain. Like, I didn't want him to be a bad guy because he's really not. It was very similar to how I felt about Orm in Aquaman. And not to compare them, I know, but it's similar because they have similar feelings about the surface world and things like that. So in a way, it's like they're just trying to protect their people. But I didn't really. Orm was a little bit less like, I didn't really like. You can sympathize with where he's coming from, but he still felt a little bit more like a villain to me throughout the whole movie. With Namor, I was like, I didn't want him to be bad, But there was really two sides to him, and it was very interesting. I guess he was more of an anti-hero in a way, but it was very well executed. Because he just he was willing to do what he had to do to protect his people, and he was, I mean, not merciful about it. But at the same time, his people were peaceful. And really interesting characterization of him, and I really, really enjoyed it. Like, it was definitely a standout highlight throughout the film, because there are parts to me that it starts to kind of slow down a little bit, and which is fine. Like, it's fine to let the story breathe. I totally agree with that. I don't think movies should be rushed through, and no, I don't agree with that. But like I said before, there are some plot points that weren't necessary. And, so Namor and learning about his world was definitely a highlight. And I thought he did a really, really great job. And he was very strong and powerful. As he's a mutant, he was definitely super powered. And so I'm glad that they brought in that element for his character. I am now going to get into some spoilers. So this is a spoiler alert. If you want to not watch this part of the rest of it, because I'm going to get into spoilers, that is just a warning. Spoilers are coming up from here on out. Okay, spoiler warning one more time. All right, so Riri Williams is introduced in this movie. She is Ironheart. She's a genius college student who makes a vibranium detector for a school project because her professor said that she couldn't do it, so she did it. And that's what these mercenaries, French mercenaries, are using to try to mine or detect vibranium. Them mining or trying to detect vibranium is what causes Namor to get involved. In the trailer, he says that the fact that the world now knows about Wakanda puts them in danger. And I'm like, I wonder why. Because the Wakandans don't even know that they don't really know about them, So I was like, why would they be in danger because the world knows about Wakanda? What does that have to do with them? Well, the audience and Wakanda at the same time, the Wakandans also find out the same, we both learn it together, that Talokan also has vibranium. Wakanda is not the only place in the world anymore that has vibranium. Namor wants to find out who created this technology because he wants to kill the scientist, and Cherie is trying to protect her, Riri Williams, from Namor killing her because he doesn't want his people to be in danger. but Namor wants the alliance of Wakanda, so that way they can both protect each other from being attacked by outside nations for vibranium or for their resources. And so that's one of the battles for Shuri. The whole movie is that she has to figure out, does she want to do this or not? Now, another spoiler. I was not expecting Queen Ramonda to die in this film. So that's how Shuri has to really step up. And I mean, I didn't expect that to happen. I guess it just was more unexpected because T'Challa also had to die in this movie. Well, they chose to do that instead of recasting him. So I guess I didn't expect her to also die, but that was probably already part of the maybe that was probably already part of the script before Chadwick Boseman died. I don't know. It just was a little expected and definitely sad and emotional. So now Shuri has even more to take on, and she ultimately becomes the next Black Panther. I think she did a really great job of taking this. She had to take on a lot in this film. Her character really is so much more important now. Not that she wasn't important before, but she's Black Panther now, and I think she did a really great job. Actually, she was, she was tough. She was confident. One thing that I was very surprised by and was not expecting, when she takes the herb and she goes into the ancestral plane, she's expecting to see T'Challa or her aunt, her father maybe, but she sees Killmonger. And I did not expect to see him, first of all, in this movie, so it was really great to see him come back in that way. It did not take away from the fact that he died in the first film. It was very interesting to see him like that. And it really added to the struggle. Like, it really showed how much she was struggling internally with now being not just losing T'Challa, but now losing her mother, having to take on a whole nother role. Now she's going to have to be the leader. Now she's going to have to be also the Black Panther. Like, it showed how she was, not necessarily feeling the same way about being, T'Challa saw his father, Killmonger saw his father even. So it was very interesting that she saw him. And I really liked the scene where she's in the ancestral plane and she's, they're having this communication. It was very interesting, and it was a good unexpected part of the film. I mean, in her final fight with Namor, it was a great final fight. I'm just gonna say that the way they came to a resolution between her and Namor in the end, I appreciated the way they did it, because, like I said, there's a thing about him that you don't want him to be just a total evil bad guy. He is threatening and menacing when he needs to be, or when he feels he needs to be. But at the same time, they're both kind of trying to just do the same thing. They're both trying to protect their nations and their people. And so I liked the way they ended the film between the two of them. So one last spoiler that I was definitely not expecting is that T'Challa and Nakia have a son. And Shuri just finds out about him at the end of the film, and he is named after him. So I'm really interested to see where this is going to go, continuing forward in the MCU. Overall, a good movie. But, I think it was going to be hard to kind of live up to the first one, but still a great movie and definitely very emotional and deep. And those are my thoughts on it. So let me know if you guys have seen the movie. Let me know your thoughts. Sorry, it turned into kind of a long review, but there's a lot to dive into with this movie. And so, a lot of things to kind of, I think, that are necessary to talk about for the film. So thank you guys for watching, and let me know your thoughts if you've seen it already. But I appreciate you guys' support on the channel. Don't forget to, like, comment, share, subscribe, all of that good stuff. And we'll see you soon.